Okay, let's use that date object to allow us to do some of that subtraction and that complicated math that we can do fairly easily with the computer and allow us to determine differences in dates. So we're going to do two examples in this section. First, we're going to figure out how old I am in days and then how old I am in years. And then we're going to do a second example that is similar to what you need to do in your lab. We're going to set up my birthday as the event we're looking forward to, and we're going to figure out how many days it is until that event happens. So let's go ahead and get started on the first one. We're going to set up two date objects, one of them storing the current date. So we're going to go ahead and in our script tags var today is, and we're going to set that equal to a new date object. I just hit the tablet. And then we're also going to var my b-day, and we're going to set that equal to a new date object also, but this time we're actually going to feed it my birth date. So we're just going to say August 6th, 1971. And so what we're going to do now is we are going to subtract those two dates and then figure out, convert it into either days or years, which is what we want for this example. So we're going to go ahead and do this in a couple of steps. We're going to set up a variable named millisecond cents. And the reason I'm going to set it up as millisecond cents is because when you subtract these two things, it's going to take the time of the earlier date, which in this case we've not designated a time, so it'll do this as at midnight, and the current time. It'll subtract those two dates and it will return our answer in the not very useful form of milliseconds. So it's going to tell us how many thousandths of seconds have passed since my birthday in 1971. Talk about a big number that'll make you feel old. So what we need to do is take those milliseconds, divide by the appropriate conversions to get into minutes, hours, and days to give us the answer that we want. So we're going to go ahead and do the subtraction. We're going to say we want to subtract today is dot get time, and we're going to subtract that from my b-day dot get time. So we now have how many milliseconds old I am, and we need to go ahead and convert that into our days, but also we're going to round it down. A lady's age, you should always round down. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set up another variable. We're going to name this days cents, and we're going to set that equal to millisecond cents, and we're going to divide it by a conversion formula. To get it from milliseconds to seconds, we would divide by 1,000. We're going to combine this all in the denominator of this fraction. So to divide over and over again, really what we're going to do is multiply in the denominator. So we're going to multiply 1,000 by 60 to get it into minutes, by 60 again to get it into hours, and by 24 to get it into days. So when we do that, we're going to end up with a fraction probably from this division. So we're going to go ahead and round that whole answer using the math object, and we're going to round it to the floor. We're going to round down, and we need to put all of that in parentheses. So that's going to tell us how many days old I am. And so if we want to do var years cents, we can just take days cents and divide that by 365. Again, we'll probably want to round that down. So we'll do a math.floor on that as well. And then all we have to do is put in our output. You can document.write. Oops. I am currently space plus, oops, space, quotes, plus days since, plus, now remember, because days since is going to print a number, if I don't put a space inside my quotes here, it would smush the next word right up against that, days old. And then I can document dot write that makes me quote plus years since plus quote space years old. Now if I wanted to put this on different lines, remember I can come into my literal and put in HTML tags if I can actually type correctly. So I open up a P tag and I can close a P tag here, which will put this on its own line. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. We get the fact that I am currently 15,697 days old, which makes me feel old, and it then shows my years here. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next example using my birth date. So I'm going to go ahead and keep those same variables, but this time I'm going to subtract them and figure out how many days there are between them. The only thing I'm going to do, because I don't want to go all the way back to 1971, I want to go to 2014, so I can figure out how many days it is until my birthday this year. This is very similar to the lab that you're going to do, where you're going to figure out how many days there are between the date that you pick for your event and the current date. So we're going to go ahead and var the days subtracted, and we're going to subtract these. My B day minus today is. Now we're not going to get the time like we did on the last one. We're actually not going to calculate it down to the seconds or to the, we're just going to do days again, and I was just showing you how to do that before, so we don't need to dot get time these if we don't want. And then we're going to set up our var days until to store our answer. And so we're going to take days subtracted, and again we're going to divide that by 1,000 to get it from milliseconds into seconds, change it to minutes, change it to hours, and finally change it to days. And so all we do again is document.write our output. There are days until, forgot my plus sign there, my birthday. And so what it'll do is it'll do our calculation. Notice that I'm selecting the date in the future and subtracting the current date from that, doing the conversion to get it into days, and then outputting that in a concatenated sentence. So we preview that and we find out that yes, in 8.273 days I'll have my birthday. Of course, most of us don't think in 0.273s, so we could come in here and we could math.seal that, which is sealing, which will round that number up instead of giving us that decimal. So it should round that up to 9 this time and say that my birthday is in 9 days. That is the end of the date object. We have a couple of lessons left with arrays that will allow you to do your random quotes, and we'll also revisit the date object a little bit to be able to retrieve the day of the week names as well as the month names.